Emma stood at the edge of the crystal cliff overlooking the vast purple desert of Caleth Prime. The twin moons hung low in the sky, casting strange shadows across the barren landscape. She was alone here, or so she thought, but the soft rustling sound behind her told her that she was no longer without company. She turned slowly and saw them moving through the thin atmosphere of the dying planet. 2 dragon hatchlings, barely half her height, struggling to walk on legs that had not yet learned their purpose. The female hatchling was the first to collapse. Emma rushed forward and caught the creature before it could fall to the hard ground. The dragon was burning hot to the touch, her scales glowing with a sickly green color that indicated infection and fever. Emma had read about this condition in the ancient texts. It was a plague that spread through dragon colonies during the harsh seasons. Very few survived it. Most died within days. Emma carried the female dragon carefully back to her shelter, a small cave that she had prepared for moments like this. She had not always been a dragon keeper. Once she had been a scholar, living in the great libraries of the elven cities on Sylvanus. Her people had taught her that dragons were savage beasts, creatures meant only for hunting and conquest. But Emma had never believed that. She had always felt that there was something more to these magnificent animals, something that deserved compassion and care. The male hatchling followed her into the cave, limping badly but determined to stay close to his companion. Emma recognized the bond immediately. These two were connected somehow, perhaps by blood or perhaps by something deeper that she did not yet understand. She prepared a healing solution from the plants that grew in the hidden oasis near her shelter. The liquid was bitter and bright yellow, mixed with herbs and minerals that would help fight the infection. For 3 days, Emma barely slept. She moved between the 2 dragons, caring for them with a tenderness that surprised even herself. She cleaned their scales, fed them nutritious foods from the oasis, and spoke to them in soft, gentle tones. The female dragon, whom she named Vex, seemed to respond to the treatment. The fever began to break on the 3rd day, and her scales slowly returned to their natural deep emerald color. The male dragon, whom she called Kessir, had recovered more quickly. His silver and blue scales had never been infected, but he remained weak and malnourished. Emma realized that these 2 had been abandoned by their colony. Perhaps they were the last of their kind in this region, or perhaps they had simply been rejected by their own people for reasons she could not understand. By the end of the 1st week, both dragons were strong enough to leave the cave. Emma took them to the oasis and watched as they drank deeply from the cool water. She sat on a smooth stone and studied them carefully. Vex was smaller but moved with deadly grace, her movements calculated and precise. Kessir was larger and more powerful, but his temperament seemed gentler, more curious about the world around him. Emma realized something profound in that moment. These dragons, despite being creatures of the stars and legends, were not so different from her. They felt pain and fear. They knew loneliness and abandonment. They understood loyalty and love. Her entire culture had been wrong about so many things. That night, as the twin moons rose higher in the sky, Emma made a decision that would change her life forever. She would not send these dragons away. She would not try to tame them or train them for some military purpose. She would raise them as companions, as friends, as family. She would learn everything about them and share with them everything that she knew. The weeks that followed were filled with discovery and wonder. Emma taught Kessir and Vex to trust her completely. She spoke to them constantly, telling them stories from the ancient texts, singing songs in the elven language, and sharing her thoughts and feelings with them as if they could understand every word. And somehow they did understand, not through language but through something deeper, a connection that transcended words. Emma began to notice that the dragons responded to her emotions. When she was sad, they would stay close to her, their large heads resting gently against her back. When she was happy and excited, they would fly in circles around her, their wings catching the light of the moons in spectacular displays. When she was afraid, they would position themselves protectively around her, their claws extended and ready. One day, Emma received a distress signal on her old communications device, a piece of technology that she had hidden in her shelter years ago. The signal was coming from a human colony on a nearby moon. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and Emma had never seen one in person. The elves spoke of them with contempt, calling them primitive and weak, unworthy of the advanced technologies of the elder races. But something in Emma made her curious. Against all the teachings of her people, against all logic and reason, she decided to investigate the signal. She climbed onto Cassier's back with Vex flying beside them, and they launched into the black void of space. The journey took 3 days, and Emma had no idea what she would find when they arrived. The human colony was smaller than she expected, just a few metal structures clinging to the surface of a desolate moon. The colony appeared to be under attack. Strange ships with angular designs were bombarding the structures from above. Emma could see small defensive weapons firing back, but the humans were clearly losing the battle. Without thinking, without understanding why she was doing this, Emma guided Cassier toward the attacking ships. The dragon's screams echoed through the vacuum of space, and suddenly, the human defenders stopped their futile bombardment and simply stared. They had never seen creatures like this before. Dragons were myths to them, legends from ancient times that they had thought were only stories. Cassier and Vex moved with devastating precision. The dragon's breath weapons were not fire and heat like the ancient texts described, but pure energy that burned through the attacking ship's armor as if it were paper. Within minutes, the alien attackers were retreating, their ships damaged beyond repair, their crews fleeing in small escape pods. Emma landed Cassier near the human settlement and climbed down from his back. The doors of the largest structure opened and humans emerged. They moved toward her carefully, their weapons drawn but not pointed directly at her. They were curious, not hostile, and Emma appreciated this about them immediately. A tall man with dark hair and kind eyes stepped forward. His name was Marcus, and he was the commander of this small human outpost. He looked at Emma and then at the dragons, and his eyes widened with wonder and fear in equal measure. But he did not run. He did not attack. Instead, he extended his hand in a gesture of peace. Emma understood the gesture. She reached out and took his hand gently. In that moment, something shifted in the universe. An elf and a human, two species that had never been allies, that had always stood on opposite sides of every conflict, had chosen to be friends. Marcus invited Emma into the colony and offered her food and water. She told him about the dragons, about how she had saved them and raised them as her own. She told him about the teachings of her people and how she had rejected them. Marcus listened carefully, and when she finished, he told her about humanity. He told her about their struggles and their dreams, about their determination to survive in a hostile universe despite lacking the advanced technology of the elder races. Emma realized that humans had something that the elves did not. They had hope. They had the ability to look at impossible situations and find reasons to keep fighting, keep trying, keep believing that things could get better. It was a quality that Emma found deeply moving and deeply admirable. Marcus told her that the alien attackers were part of a larger force called the Valkyrians. They were spreading through this sector of space, conquering and destroying every civilization they encountered. The human colonies were next on their list. Alone, the humans could not hope to stand against such a powerful enemy. But with Emma and her dragons, with an alliance between their peoples, perhaps there was a chance. Emma knew that accepting this offer would mean giving up her solitary existence. It would mean becoming involved in the conflicts and wars that had always plagued the galaxy. It would mean risking her life and the lives of her beloved dragons for a cause that was not her own. But as she looked into Marcus's eyes and saw the desperate hope there, she knew that she could not refuse. That night, Emma sent a message to the Elven councils back on Sylvanus. She told them that she had chosen a new path, one that the elves would certainly condemn. She told them that she was siding with humans against the Valkyrians. She told them that she believed in something greater than her own people's ancient traditions and prejudices. She knew that she would be cast out, declared a traitor to her kind. But as she sat under the twin moons with Cassier and Vex resting peacefully beside her, she felt a sense of peace and purpose that she had never known before. The real struggle was about to begin. The human military base was built deep inside a mountain, hidden from orbital surveillance by layers of rock and advanced shielding technology. Emma had never seen such a place before. The elves preferred to build their cities in open spaces, where they could see the stars and feel the connection to the ancient magic that flowed through the universe. But humans were practical. They understood that sometimes survival meant abandoning beauty in favor of function. Marcus led Emma through the winding corridors of the base. Soldiers saluted as they passed, their eyes wide with wonder as they caught sight of the dragons following behind her. Kesser had to lower his head to pass through the doorways, and Vex kept her wings tucked tightly against her body to avoid knocking over the careful stacks of equipment and supplies. The command center was a massive chamber filled with screens and devices that Emma could not identify. Dozens of humans worked at terminals, monitoring communications and tracking the movements of the Valkyrian fleet. Emma approached one of the large displays and felt her heart sink. The Valkyrians had more ships than she had imagined. Hundreds of them, spread across multiple star systems, all moving in a coordinated pattern toward the human territories. A woman approached Emma. Her name was Lieutenant Sarah, and she was the base commander's second in command. She had sharp features and intelligent eyes that seemed to measure Emma carefully before deciding whether to trust her. Sarah extended her hand and Emma shook it firmly, remembering the gesture that Marcus had taught her. Sarah showed Emma the strategic situation in detail. The Valkyrians had already conquered 7 human worlds in the past year. Millions had been killed. The survivors were either enslaved or scattered across the galaxy, trying to find safe haven in the outer colonies. The human fleet, what remained of it, was vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Even with the advanced weapons and tactics that they had developed, the humans were losing this war. But Sarah did not sound defeated when she spoke. She sounded determined, almost angry. She told Emma about the human soldiers who had died fighting against the Valkyrians. She told Emma about the families that had been destroyed, the homes that had been burned, the futures that had been stolen. Sarah's passion was so intense that Emma found herself moved by it. This was what humans did. They felt everything deeply, and they turned that feeling into action. Over the next few weeks, Emma worked with the human military strategists to develop a plan. She taught them everything that she knew about dragon combat. She explained how Kesser and Vex could move through space without the need for ships, how they could breathe energy weapons that would burn through most conventional armor, how they could reach speeds that would take hours for even the fastest human starfighters to achieve. In return, the humans taught Emma about their technology and tactics. They showed her how to use advanced weapon systems, how to coordinate with their fleet, how to understand the strategic importance of different star systems and outposts. Emma found herself fascinated by how humans thought about problems. They approached everything from multiple angles, never assuming that there was only one solution. One of the human engineers, a young man named David, became particularly important to Emma. David worked with dragons for the first time in his life, and he approached the task with scientific precision and genuine love. He designed saddles and harnesses that would allow Emma to ride safely on Kesser's back during combat. He created communication devices that would let Emma coordinate with the human fleet even in the depths of space. He spent hours with Vex, studying how she moved, how she thought, what seemed to bring her comfort or fear. Emma and David became friends quickly. They spent their evenings talking about their dreams and their fears. David told Emma about his family, about his sister who had been killed during the first Valkyrian attack on the outer colonies. Emma told David about her life in the elven cities, about the libraries and the ancient magic, about why she had chosen to leave everything behind. One night, as they sat together looking out at the stars through the observation window, David asked Emma a question that she had not expected. He asked her if she regretted her decision to help the humans. Emma thought carefully about this. She thought about the loneliness of her life before, the isolation that came from rejecting her own people's teachings. She thought about the sense of purpose that she felt now, the knowledge that she was fighting for something that mattered. Emma told David that she did not regret anything. She told him that meeting him, meeting Marcus, meeting all of these humans who fought so fiercely for what they believed in, had changed her understanding of what was possible. She told him that she had come to believe that her people, the ancient and proud elves, had lost something important long ago. They had lost the ability to believe in something greater than themselves. David reached out and took Emma's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it meant everything. In that moment, Emma realized that she was no longer entirely alone in the universe. She had found a home, not in a place, but in the people around her who shared her values and her hopes for a better future. The next morning, emergency alarms began to sound throughout the base. The Valkyrian fleet had changed course. Instead of attacking the distant colonies, they were now moving directly toward the human strongholds. According to the military strategists, the Valkyrians would reach the outer defense stations in less than 48 hours. The time for training and preparation was over. The real battle was about to begin. Marcus called for a full assembly of all available military personnel. In the massive briefing room, soldiers and officers gathered to hear about the coming conflict. Emma stood beside Marcus at the front of the room, with Kesser and Vex positioned behind her like living weapons. Marcus told the assembled soldiers that this would be the most important battle of their lives. He told them that the Valkyrians were powerful and advanced, but that humanity had something that the Valkyrians did not. Humans had the ability to adapt and overcome. Humans had courage that came not from individual strength, but from standing together against impossible odds. Marcus introduced Emma to the entire military. He told them about the elf who had chosen to stand with humanity instead of her own people. He told them about the dragons that would fly alongside their ships in combat. He told them that together, humans and elves and dragons, they would prove that the universe was not destined to be ruled by the cruel and powerful. They would prove that compassion and cooperation could defeat tyranny and destruction. When Marcus finished speaking, the soldiers erupted in cheers. Emma felt something shift inside her. She understood now why humans believed so strongly in their causes. They inspired each other. They gave each other strength through words and actions and the simple acknowledgement that they were not alone in their struggles. Emma approached Marcus after the meeting and told him that she was ready. She told him that Kesser and Vex were ready. She told him that she would do everything in her power to help the humans defeat the Valkyrian threat. Marcus embraced her, something that Emma was still getting used to, but something that she was beginning to appreciate. It was a gesture of trust and friendship that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. That night, Emma could not sleep. She walked through the corridors of the military base and found herself in the hangar, where the human starfighters were being prepared for combat. The pilots were checking their weapons, running diagnostic tests, making sure that everything was in perfect working order. They moved with quiet efficiency, each one focused on the task ahead. Emma watched them work and thought about all the ways that humans were different from elves. Elves were individual. They valued personal achievement and personal power above all else. But humans seemed to value the group, the collective, the team. Humans understood that individual excellence meant nothing if it was not directed toward a common purpose. One of the pilots noticed Emma watching and approached her. His name was Robert, and he had the weathered face of someone who had lived through many battles. Robert told Emma that he had heard stories about her from other pilots. He told her that they were afraid of her at first, afraid of the dragons and afraid of the unknown. But now they understood that Emma was fighting for the same things that they were fighting for. They understood that she had become one of them. Robert asked Emma if she was afraid of what was coming. Emma thought about this honestly. She was afraid. She was terrified of losing Kesser and Vex. She was terrified of failing the humans who had shown her so much kindness and acceptance. But she was also excited. She was ready to prove that her decision to stand with humanity had meaning. She was ready to show that dragons and elves and humans could work together to create something better than any of them could create alone. Robert smiled at Emma and shook her hand firmly. He told her that he would see her in the sky when the battle began. He told her that he trusted her to watch his back while he watched hers. Emma nodded and returned to her quarters where Kesser and Vex were waiting for her. She lay down between them, feeling their warmth and their strength, and tried to find peace before the storm arrived. The Valkyrian fleet appeared on the scanners like a disease spreading across a healthy body. Hundreds of sleek ships, their hulls gleaming with a sickly iridescent sheen, moved in perfect formation toward the human defensive perimeter. Emma watched. The data streams from the command center, seeing how the enemy vessels coordinated their movements with mechanical precision. There was no creativity in their tactics, no improvisation. They simply overwhelmed their opponents with superior numbers and firepower. Marcus stood beside Emma, his face grim, but resolved. He had been fighting this war for longer than Emma had known him, and she could see the weight of all those battles etched into his features. He turned to Emma and told her that this would be the engagement that decided everything. If the humans could inflict enough damage on the Valkyrian fleet here, it might buy them enough time to evacuate the remaining colonies. If they failed, there would be no more chances. Emma nodded and made her way toward the launch platform where Kessir and Vex were already being prepared. The dragons wore specialized harnesses designed by David that would allow Emma to stay secure on Kessir's back while maintaining freedom of movement for combat. Additional equipment was attached to Vex's harness, including advanced targeting systems and communication equipment that would allow her to coordinate with the human fleet. As Emma moved toward her dragons, she encountered David in the preparation chamber. He was running final diagnostic checks on the communication systems, his hands moving with practiced efficiency over the various devices. When he saw Emma, he stopped what he was doing and approached her. David did not say anything at first. He simply looked at Emma with eyes that held both fear and determination in equal measure. David told Emma that he had wanted to ask her something, and he wanted to ask her now, in case there was no later. He told her that she had changed his entire understanding of what was possible. He told her that he believed in what they were doing, that he believed they could win against the Valkyrians, but that belief only mattered if they survived to see it through. David reached into his pocket and withdrew a small crystal pendant. It was an elven artifact, something that Emma recognized as a symbol of binding and commitment. David told Emma that he wanted her to carry this into battle, as a reminder that she was not fighting alone. Emma took the pendant with trembling hands. She understood what David was offering. It was not just a keepsake. It was a promise, a commitment that transcended the normal boundaries between friendship and something deeper. Emma had never allowed herself to feel this way about anyone before. She had always kept her emotions locked away, believing that attachment was a weakness. But standing there with David holding the pendant, Emma realized that she had been wrong. Attachment was not weakness. Attachment was what gave humans their strength. Attachment was why David worked tirelessly to create weapons and tools that would keep his friends alive. Attachment was why Marcus led soldiers who were willing to die for a cause they believed in. Attachment was why humans could see impossible odds and still choose to fight. Emma placed the pendant around her neck and allowed David to embrace her. She held him close, feeling the warmth of another living being, and for the first time in her entire life, Emma felt truly at peace. The launch sequence began with a rumble that shook the entire mountain base. Emma climbed onto Kessir's back and settled herself into the specially designed saddle. Vex moved into position beside them, her powerful wings already beginning to unfold as the launch platform rose toward the surface. Around them, human starfighters powered up their engines, preparing for the launch into open space. The sky opened above them like a wound, and suddenly Emma and her dragons were free of the mountain, rising into the atmosphere where the vacuum of space waited. Kessir's wings spread wide, catching the solar winds that blew across the upper atmosphere. Beside them, Vex climbed higher and higher, her emerald scales catching the light of the distant stars. The command channel crackled with voices of pilots checking in with each other, confirming readiness, offering encouragement and final words of farewell to their comrades. Marcus's voice came through the channel, calm and steady, confirming the attack coordinates and giving final orders. He told the assembled forces that they were about to engage with the Valkyrian fleet. He told them to remember why they were fighting. He told them to remember the innocents who were counting on them to succeed. The first wave of Valkyrian fighters appeared on the scanners when Emma and Kessir were still several thousand kilometers away from the main battle area. These were smaller craft, not the massive capital ships but fast attack vessels designed to harry and weaken the human defenders. The human starfighters broke formation and moved to intercept, their energy weapons blazing as they engaged the enemy. Emma felt Kessir accelerate beneath her, the dragon's powerful wings driving them forward at speeds that no conventional starfighter could match. Vex flew in tight formation beside them, her own weapon systems already coming online as she scanned for targets. Emma activated the communication link and spoke to Kessir, telling him where she wanted him to go, which enemies she wanted him to engage. The dragon understood perfectly. Emma had spent months training with Kessir, developing a bond that went beyond words or conventional training. They moved as one entity, perfectly synchronized in their movements and intentions. When Kessir dove toward a formation of Valkyrian fighters, Emma was already directing his energy weapons toward the targets, calculating angles and trajectories with a precision that surprised her. The first Valkyrian fighter exploded in a bloom of radiation when Kesser's breath weapon caught it dead center. The dragon released a sound that was part roar and part scream, a vibration that seemed to carry through space itself. Vex was right. Beside them, her claws raking across another fighter's hull, leaving deep gouges that exposed the internal structures of the ship. The Valkyrian pilots seemed unprepared for the dragons. Their targeting systems appeared to have difficulty tracking the dragon's movements, which were far more erratic and unpredictable than the movements of conventional starfighters. Emma realized that the Valkyrians' greatest weakness was their reliance on technology and predetermined tactical patterns. They could be overcome by a sufficiently flexible and creative opponent. Emma guided Kesser toward a larger Valkyrian destroyer that was bearing down on a group of human frigates. The destroyer was massive, its hull bristling with weapons emplacements, but it was slow and ponderous compared to the dragon's agility. Kesser climbed above the destroyer and then dove straight down at it, his energy weapon charging as he approached. The destroyer's weapons batteries swiveled to track the attacking dragon, but Kesser was already moving too fast. He fired his breath weapon at nearly point-blank range, and the concentrated beam of energy tore through the destroyer's shields and into its hull. The destroyer lurched to one side, its trajectory disrupted by the massive blow. Several of its weapon systems went dark as the internal systems overloaded from the energy surge. That was when Emma saw them, the capital ships, the massive Valkyrian vessels that dwarfed everything else in the battle area. There were 5 of them, arranged in a perfect pattern around the human fleet. Emma realized that they had never intended to defeat the humans through conventional combat. They intended to use their overwhelming firepower to simply annihilate everything in a wide radius. Emma opened a direct communication channel to Marcus and told him about the capital ships. She told him that the Valkyrians were preparing to fire their primary weapons. She told him that the human fleet only had minutes before the bombardment began. Marcus's voice came back calm and steady. He told Emma to do whatever she could to disrupt the capital ship's targeting systems. Emma thought quickly. The capital ships were too large for her and Kesser to destroy directly, but maybe she did not need to destroy them. Maybe she just needed to prevent them from firing their weapons. Emma guided Kesser toward the nearest capital ship, and Vex flew close behind her, ready to support her sister. As they approached the massive Valkyrian vessel, Emma saw the weapons arrays along its hull. These were the systems that would rain destruction on the human fleet in moments. Emma pointed out the targeting array to Kesser, and the dragon understood immediately what she wanted him to do. Kesser released a continuous stream of energy that burned away the armor protecting the targeting array. Vex supplemented his attack, her claws raking across the exposed systems, tearing through circuitry and power conduits with devastating efficiency. The capital ship's weapons fell silent as its targeting computer suffered catastrophic damage, but the other 4 capital ships were already turning their attention toward the dragons. Massive energy weapons began to charge, each one powerful enough to destroy an entire city. Emma felt fear spike through her, but she did not let it paralyze her. She told Kesser to move, to get away, to find cover in the debris field created by the destroyed Valkyrian fighters. The beam weapons fired, filling the space where Emma and Kesser had been only moments before with devastating fire. The energy was so intense that it created a visible shockwave that knocked aside several human starfighters. The command center of the Valkyrian flagship hung in space like a predator's lair, a massive structure bristling with weapons and defenses. Emma watched its movements on her communication screen as Marcus coordinated the human assault from the command base on the planet below. The Valkyrian commander was a being named Shiral, an alien of immense power and strategic brilliance. According to the intelligence reports that Sarah had shared with Emma, Shiral had conquered 17 worlds and enslaved millions of sentient beings. He was not someone who could be reasoned with or defeated through conventional means. Emma knew what she had to do. The human fleet was holding its own against the Valkyrian capital ships, but they were still losing ground. For every enemy vessel that was destroyed, 2 human ships fell. The death toll was climbing with each passing minute. The only way to turn the tide of the battle was to strike at the heart of the Valkyrian forces, to destroy or incapacitate the commander's ship. Emma told Kessir to approach the flagship from the side where the Valkyrian defenses appeared weakest. The dragon banked hard, his powerful wings driving him forward at incredible speed. Behind them, Vex flew alongside, matching Kessir's course and velocity. They were a team, these two dragons and their elf companion. They had trained together, fought together, and faced death together. They understood each other in ways that went beyond the need for words or commands. The Valkyrians detected their approach and opened fire with everything they had. Weapons batteries swiveled to track the incoming dragons, filling the space between them with deadly energy and destructive force. But Emma and Kessir had faced this many times now. They had developed instincts for reading Valkyrian attack patterns, for anticipating where the fire would come from next. Kessir twisted through the barrage of weapons fire, his wings spreading wide to catch the solar winds, using them to gain additional speed and maneuverability. Vex moved in closer to the flagship's hull, using the massive structure itself as cover from the defending weapon systems. Emma fired her weapons as they passed, targeting the shield generators and weapon emplacements that she had memorized during her planning sessions with the human military strategists, but she knew that they could not get close enough to do real damage unless she found a way to penetrate the ship's defenses. The Valkyrian flagship was simply too well protected. Emma opened a communication channel to Marcus and told him what she needed. She told him that the human fleet needed to concentrate all of their firepower on the flagship's stern section for exactly 90 seconds. She told him that this would give her and the dragons the opening they needed to attack the ship's reactor core. Marcus asked her if she was certain about this plan. Emma could hear the doubt in his voice. He knew that what she was asking was incredibly dangerous. If the human fleet concentrated their fire on just one section of the flagship, they would have to leave their own ships vulnerable to attack from the other Valkyrian capital ships. But Emma also knew that Marcus understood the reality of their situation. They were losing this battle. They needed to take risks if they had any hope of winning. Marcus told her to proceed. He issued new orders to the fleet, and within seconds, every human weapon in range was focusing on the stern section of the Valkyrian flagship. The concentrated firepower was devastating. Sections of the ship's armor were torn away, revealing the internal structures beneath. Shield generators overloaded and failed. Weapons emplacements were destroyed as their power sources were cut off. Emma watched the 90 seconds tick by on her communication screen. It was the longest 90 seconds of her entire life. She counted each one, knowing that when the time was up, she would have to commit herself and her dragons to an attack that might very well be suicidal. When the count reached 0, she leaned forward against Kessir's neck and told him to move. Kessir dove toward the exposed section of the Valkyrian flagship, his wings folded tight against his body to minimize his profile. Vex followed half a second behind, her own trajectory calculated to give her maximum acceleration toward the target. Emma activated all of Kessir's weapon systems and released a continuous stream of energy that burned into the exposed hull of the enemy ship, the Valkyrian. Defenders tried to reorient their weapons to track the incoming dragons, but the damage done by the human fleet's concentrated fire had been too severe. Many of the defensive systems were simply not functioning anymore. Emma and Kessir passed through the damaged section of the flagship's hull like a meteor, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. On the other side of the flagship, Vex performed a similar maneuver, her smaller size allowing her to navigate through the damaged sections with incredible precision. Emma realized that they had done it. They had breached the flagship's defenses. They had gotten inside, but that was when the situation became truly dangerous. Inside the ship, in the corridors and chambers of the Valkyrian vessel, there were soldiers and warriors ready to defend their command center. Emma felt Kessir slow as he entered the internal structures of the ship. The dragon's movements became more cautious, more deliberate. As he navigated the narrow passages and winding corridors, Emma drew her energy blade, a weapon that she had learned to use from the human military instructors. The blade hummed with power as she activated it, casting a pale blue light through the corridors of the Valkyrian flagship. She could hear the sound of Valkyrian soldiers moving toward her, their armored bodies clanging against the metal walls of their own ship. The first group of soldiers emerged from a side passage, their weapons already firing. But Kessir was faster. The dragon released a blast of energy that scattered the soldiers, sending them flying backward through the corridor. Emma could see the determination in the dragon's movements, the same fierce protectiveness that she had always felt from him. Vex appeared from above, literally tearing through the ceiling of the corridor with her claws. The dragon had somehow maneuvered through the ship's internal structures and positioned herself perfectly to flank any defenders. Emma realized that her dragons understood strategy almost as well as she did. They could read a situation, anticipate threats, and respond with devastating effectiveness. The path toward the command center became clearer as Emma and her dragons pushed forward. The Valkyrian defenders were falling back, regrouping, trying to form a more organized resistance. But they were facing something that they had never encountered before. They were facing creatures that could move through 3 dimensions with ease, that could change direction instantly, that could strike from angles that conventional military tactics had not prepared them for. Emma felt Kessir accelerate as they drew closer to the ship's reactor. According to the schematics that David had provided her, the reactor was only a few hundred meters away now. If they could reach it, if they could damage it sufficiently, the Valkyrian flagship would lose power. Without power, the ship would become crippled, defenseless, unable to maintain its weapons or shield systems. The command center's heavy doors swung open before them, and Emma found herself face to face with Shiral. The Valkyrian commander stood nearly 9 feet tall, his crystalline armor gleaming with a sickly iridescent light. His eyes were strange and alien, lacking pupils or irises, appearing instead as solid pools of luminous color. When Shiral looked at Emma, she felt a moment of pure terror unlike anything she had experienced before. But that terror lasted only a moment. Because in that same instant, Emma saw something in Shiral's expression that she had not expected to see. She saw fear. The Valkyrian commander was afraid of her and her dragons. He understood that they represented something that his carefully ordered universe could not comprehend or control. Emma leaned forward against Kessir's neck, and the dragon released a sound that was part roar and part song, a vibration that seemed to resonate through every part of the command center. Vex appeared beside her sister, and together the 2 dragons moved toward Shiral with deadly intent. The Valkyrian commander pulled a weapon from his armor and fired, but his shot was wild, desperate, born from fear rather than tactical precision. The blast struck Kessir in the shoulder, and Emma felt the dragon stumble, felt the sudden pain that radiated from the wound. But Kessir did not stop moving. He drove forward through the pain, his claws extended, ready to finish what they had started. That was when Marcus's voice came through Emma's communication channel. He told her that the human fleet had successfully destroyed the other 4 Valkyrian capital ships. He told her that the Valkyrian forces were retreating, abandoning the battlefield. He told her that they had won. They had actually won. Emma looked at Shiral and saw the moment when understanding dawned in his alien eyes. The Valkyrian commander realized that his empire was crumbling, that his forces were failing, that everything he had built was falling apart. For a being that had conquered so much, that had caused so much suffering, the moment of defeat was devastating. Emma reached out her hand, not with her weapon drawn, but with her palm open. She offered Shiral the chance to surrender, the chance to accept defeat with honor. Marcus had taught her this. Humans always tried to offer their enemies a way out, a chance for redemption, even when those enemies had shown no such mercy themselves. The medical bay of the human base was filled with the sound of beeping machines and the controlled movement of skilled technicians. Emma sat beside Kessir, watching as the human doctors worked to treat the wound that the Valkyrian commander had inflicted. The blast had burned away some of Kessir's scales and damaged the muscle tissue beneath. It was painful to watch, but Emma knew that the dragon would recover. Dragons were resilient creatures, far more durable than she had ever imagined when she had first found Kessir and Vex as injured hatchlings on Caleth Prime. David was beside Emma, his hands gentle as he examined the wound with specialized diagnostic equipment. He told Emma that Kessir would need several weeks of recovery, but that there would be no permanent damage. The dragon's natural healing ability was remarkable. Within a month or 2, Kessir would be back to full strength. Emma felt tears running down her face, tears of relief and exhaustion and overwhelming emotion. She had not allowed herself to cry through the entire battle. She had kept herself focused, locked in the present moment, unable to acknowledge the fear and the pain that she was experiencing. But now, with the battle over, with Kessir safe and recovering, Emma allowed herself to feel everything that she had been holding back. David sat down beside Emma and wrapped his arms around her. Emma leaned against him, drawing comfort from his presence and his strength. She told him that she had been so afraid during the battle, afraid that she would fail him and all the other humans who had shown her such kindness and acceptance. David told Emma that she had been extraordinary, that she had saved countless lives, that she had proven that dragons and humans could stand together against even the most overwhelming odds. Over the next few days, the full extent of the victory became clear. The Valkyrian fleet had been almost completely destroyed. The remaining enemy forces had retreated far into space, abandoning their conquest of the human territories. The enslaved populations on the Valkyrian-conquered worlds had been liberated, freed from the chains of alien oppression. The human colonies, though damaged, were secure, but victory had come at a great cost. Thousands of human soldiers had died in the battle. Dozens of ships had been destroyed. Entire families had been torn apart by the warfare and the Valkyrian invasions. Emma walked through the corridors of the base, seeing the grief in the faces of the surviving soldiers, understanding that while they had won, the price of victory was almost unbearable. Marcus called for a formal ceremony to honor those who had died. Emma attended the ceremony along with David and Sarah, and all the other military personnel who had survived the battle. Marcus spoke words of remembrance and gratitude, telling the assembled crowd about the soldiers who had given their lives for the cause of freedom and justice. When Marcus finished speaking, he asked Emma to come forward. Emma was confused at first, but she stood and made her way to the front of the chamber. Marcus explained to the assembled crowd that Emma had made a choice that went against everything that her own culture had taught her. She had chosen to stand with humans, to fight beside them, to risk her life and the lives of her dragons for a cause that was not originally her own. Marcus told the gathering that this was what it truly meant to be human. It was not about being born into the human species. It was about choosing to believe in something greater than yourself, about choosing to stand against injustice and tyranny, about choosing to help others even when it cost you something precious. Marcus presented Emma with an official Medal of Honor, declaring her to be a human ally and a recognized member of the human military forces. Emma accepted the medal with trembling hands. She had never imagined receiving such recognition. She had never expected to be accepted so fully by people from a different species and culture. But as she looked out at the faces of the soldiers surrounding her, she saw genuine appreciation and respect. They understood that she had sacrificed something to be here, that she had chosen them over her own people. In the weeks that followed the battle, Emma settled into her new life as a member of the human military. She continued to train with her dragons, but now the training had a different purpose. It was not about preparing for a war that might never come. It was about maintaining readiness, about ensuring that humanity would never again be caught unprepared if another threat emerged. Emma also began to teach her dragons something new. She taught them about mercy and compassion. She taught them that their strength could be used to protect the innocent, not just to destroy enemies. Kesser and Vex learned to suppress their natural instincts for violence and to respond with restraint when given the command. They learned to trust Emma completely, to follow her guidance even when it meant holding back their own power. David and Emma grew closer during this time. They spent their evenings walking through the gardens that the humans had cultivated near the base, talking about their dreams for the future. David told Emma about his plans to design even more advanced weapons and tools, technology that would help humanity become a true spacefaring civilization, able to compete with the ancient races on their own terms. Emma shared her own dreams. She told David that she hoped to help bridge the gap between humans and elves, to convince her own people that humanity was worthy of respect and alliance. She told him that she believed the ancient races had been wrong about many things, that they had clung to their old ways for so long that they had forgotten how to adapt and evolve. Emma believed that humans, with their flexibility and their creativity, could teach the elder races valuable lessons about what was truly important in the universe. Sarah came to Emma one day with an interesting proposal. She told Emma that the human leadership wanted to establish official diplomatic relations with the elven councils on Sylvanus. They wanted to send an ambassador, someone who could represent humanity's interests and negotiate peace and cooperation between the two species. Sarah told Emma that they wanted her to be that ambassador. Emma was shocked by the proposal. She told Sarah that the elves had likely declared her a traitor. She told her that she might not be welcomed back to her home world. Sarah told Emma that she understood these risks, but that she believed Emma was the only person in the universe who could truly bridge the gap between humans and elves. Emma agreed to try. She sent a message to the elven councils explaining the choice she had made and the reasons behind it. She told them about the alliance between humans and elves that had defeated the Valkyrian threat. She asked for the opportunity to speak before the councils and to present her case for formal peace and cooperation between the two species. The reply came 3 weeks later. The elven councils had agreed to hear her petition. They had not agreed to accept her or to forgive her perceived betrayals, but they had agreed to listen. Emma knew that this was the opportunity she needed. She prepared carefully for the journey to Sylvanus, working with David and Sarah to craft arguments and presentations that would convince the elves of the value of human alliance. On the day of her departure, the entire military base came to see Emma and her dragons off. The soldiers formed a line, and as Emma walked past them toward the landing platform, each one reached out and touched her hand or her shoulder in a gesture of respect and farewell. Emma felt the weight of their trust and their hopes. She understood that she was carrying something precious with her to Sylvanus, something that could change the course of history if she could make the elven councils understand. Emma climbed onto Kessir's back for the last time before her journey to the elven homeworld. The dragon was fully recovered now. His wound healed completely, his strength returned. Beside him, Vex stretched her wings, ready for the long journey through space. As they launched into the sky, leaving the human base behind, Emma looked back at the world that had become her home. She saw David standing at the edge of the landing platform, watching her go. She saw Marcus and Sarah and all the other humans who had befriended her, accepted her, and given her purpose. Emma understood now that the journey was far from over. Defeating the Valkyrians had been important, but it was only the first step. The real work lay ahead, in convincing the ancient races that humans had a place among the stars, that humans deserved to be treated with respect and equality. Emma placed her hand against the crystalline pendant that David had given her, and she felt its warmth against her chest. She thought about everything that she had learned since leaving the elven cities. She thought about courage and sacrifice and the profound strength that came from working together toward a common goal. As her dragons climbed higher into the atmosphere, leaving the planet behind, Emma made a silent promise to herself and to all the humans who had shown her such kindness. She promised that she would convince the elves that humans were worthy of respect. She promised that she would work tirelessly to build bridges between the species. She promised that she would never forget the lessons that humans had taught her about loyalty and compassion, and the true meaning of strength. The stars spread out before her, waiting to be explored, waiting for new alliances to be formed, waiting for ancient enemies to become unexpected friends. Emma and her dragons dove forward into that infinite darkness, carrying with them the hopes and dreams of two entire civilizations, ready to change the course of history.